Ariel, stay over here.
Let's start by praying. That's important.
Ariel.
Father God, we come before you and pray that you bless this class. Lord, though there may not be many people here, we're thankful that we at least get to spend this time together. And that your spirit would be here, and that this time would be fruitful, and that we would learn how to take a little more responsibility in our lives, and that we would grow together. And we just thank you for your spirit and presence here. We love you, we praise you, we thank you for who you are and what you did through your Son. And we just thank you that you love us, and pray that you help us to learn. We praise you in your name. Anybody here last week? Last week? Okay.
I won't tell.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because my son busted his tooth in half, so I wasn't able to get here. But
Oh yeah, it was with Mandy. Yeah. We watched the video.
okay, cool.
Uh-huh.
Cool. So what did you take away from that?
Couple of things I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, so we could go.
It was like responsibility,
Yeah.
taking responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy was pretty funny actually.
Yeah. Andy Stanley, he's hilarious.
What is this?
Was it? Because I don't remember. Do you know which one they saw?
I think
video?
it was the first one.
Okay.
We watched the
They
first
watched
The first one?
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So basically, he probably reiterated the
He was talking about Adam and Eve, and then.
so how we have responsibility from the beginning.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, just so I know what I'm going off of.
Yeah.
Which works out because I only had 3 classes prepared anyway for this year. So, and then we were at my my uncle's house, and he comes upstairs with his tooth in his mouth. And, yes, we had to go to the university or the dental school to get that fixed on Monday, which was fun, painful, and now every time he moves, I freak out. 'Cause I'm like, they were all my wife's brothers and sisters are in, I think all but 2, and there's 9 of them, so they're all in my house.
Oh, when this happened?
No, they're here now.
Oh.
But they were upstairs romping around this week, and I'm like, every time he moves, I'm like, oh, Michael, you still have your tooth? Because they just glued it back on.
Really?
That's all they did.
Oh wow.
I'm like, I'm just gonna get super glue next time.
That's what I do instead of an emergency room.
That's all they
Super
do.
glue it. Any cuts,
Okay.
super glue it.
Pinch it closed and super glue.
That's all they do.
That's what they have. They have that you can buy it, like a medical grade, like liquid skin.
Band-Aid?
Yeah, liquid Band-Aid. You just paint it. I used to have it. It's really, really potent though. It's like if you breathe that stuff in, you pass out. But the first point here, it says life isn't fair. And so there's an unevenness that creates balance. That unevenness becomes an excuse for irresponsibility, like we say it's not fair. So what I mean by that is, if you ever notice in society, we have people who they do the trash. There's people who clean out the sewers. There's people who do the gross jobs. If you ever seen Micro's dirty jobs, if all those people said, well, this stuff smells like literal crap because it is, and I'm just not going to do it anymore, then we wouldn't have people to do sanitation. We wouldn't have people to pick up our trash on the sidewalks. Our trash would pile up. So there's an unevenness that creates balance. So God has called all of us, whether we realize it or not, to do different things. So there's like callings in church, like pastoral callings, deacons and elders and leaders in the church. There's also God also calls people to do things that help society to remain sustainable, and that includes taking out the trash and things like that. But that creates an unevenness, and so there are people who are CEOs of companies, and there's also people who clean up trash, and those people are equally important to society. And so we create this ideal that the rich are better than the poor because they make more money. That's absolutely not the truth. I think that the people who clean up the crap out of the sewers are far more important than the people who sit in a cushy chair and make decisions. It all helps society to continue. So if there's an unevenness, it's just because that's the way God designed it, because we all need to contribute to society in some way, and we have gifts to be able to do that. But we can't make excuses. So Ben Franklin once said that he that is good at making excuses is seldom good at anything else. And we could probably all agree that we've got people in our lives that like to make excuses for everything. I know that I have a couple of people, and I used to be really good at making excuses. I'm late because there were too many red lights. It's like, or you could have left earlier and you would have been on time. So think about this. The more money you have, the more money you'll waste. And the more time you have, the more time you'll waste. So God in the Bible, actually we're going to read this, but in the Bible it says that if we're faithful in little things, God will make us stewards over greater things. So if God gives us, one job, here you can have my job. If we give Karen one job, now she's got two jobs, and she's faithful over that, and God might say, well, here, because you're faithful over that, you can have three. And if you have the capacity to handle that, God will give it to you. But if we're not faithful in what God has given us here, so if He's given me one job, if I'm not faithful in this, He might take this from me too. It's a principle that God has created where if we're faithful in the little things that He gives us, then He expands our reach. So that's why people like Mandy, who started this well 4.5 years ago, almost 5 years ago in June. If she wasn't faithful over this here, then God is not going to expand it. Same thing with Restoration Church. If we're not faithful, and church is a little different because churches are regularly growing much slower nowadays because people just don't see the value in church, unfortunately. But if we're not faithful in that, even at a slow pace, God will grow the church, and I wouldn't want Him to grow our church if we aren't being faithful. But we'll illustrate that with a scripture. But a good question to start off before we check out Matthew 25 is, what will I do with what God has given me? So that's an important point as we're closing out this whole responsibility thing. What do you have? What has God given you? So start thinking about that. What has God given you in your life now? The skills, your assets, whether He's given you a good job, a good, husband, wife. Husband, because wife, husband, whatever, men. He's put people in our lives, or kids, or whatever. So what has God given me? It's a good question to ask yourself every day. God, what have you given me today, and how can I do it? How can I use it so that I'm not wasteful of what you've given me? And we're going to read 16 verses here out of Matthew 25. So starting in 14, it says, "For the kingdom of heaven is like a man traveling to a far country, who called his own servants and delivered his goods to them. And to the one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, and to another 1, to each according to his own ability. And immediately he went on a journey. Then he who had received the 5 talents went and traded them, and made another 5 talents. And likewise he who had received 2 gained 2 more also. But he who had received 1 went and dug in the ground and hid his Lord's money. After a long time the Lord of those servants came and settled accounts with them. So he who had received 5 talents came and brought 5 other talents, saying, Lord, you delivered to me 5 talents. Look, I gained 5 more talents beside them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. He also who had received 2 talents came and said, Lord, you delivered to me 2 talents. Look, I have gained 2 more talents besides them. His Lord said to him, Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I will make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. Then he who had received the 1 talent came and said, Lord, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you have not sown and gathering where you have not scattered seed. And I was afraid and went and hid your talent in the ground. Look, there you have what is yours. But his Lord answered and said to him, You wicked and lazy servant. You knew that I reap where I have not sown and gather where I have not scattered seed. So you ought to have deposited my money with the bankers, and at my coming I would have received back my own interest. Therefore take the talent from him and give it to one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more will be given, and he who will have an abundance. But from him who does not have, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the unprofitable servant into outer darkness. There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth." So, to whom much is given, much is required. The one who received 10 talents had much more responsibility than the one who received 2 and the one who had received 1. The one who had 5 went out and got 4 or 10. Well, 5 more. He doubled his money. The one who received 2 went out and got 2 more, and for a total of 4. The one who had received 1 talent was like, "Oh crap, guys, I don't want to mess up this. I really don't want to mess this up, so I'm going to go bury it somewhere like a pirate." And he thought that the guy, his master, was going to be like, "Good job, cool, you didn't waste my money." But the master was actually like, "You did absolutely nothing. You weren't responsible over it. You buried it. You were too afraid." So we see that ideal of unevenness. Sometimes in life, those who have more are given more. Sometimes those who have a little less are given more. And sometimes those who have nothing, what they have is taken away because we're not responsible. So really, what it comes down to, what this whole passage comes down to, is doing responsibly with what God has given us now. So a lot of times, and I used to ask this, God, if you would just give me a little more money, I'll be more responsible with it, and I'll buy more things for your kingdom. It's like, God's like, no, how about you be responsible with what I've given you now? And then we'll talk about giving you more later. So this talks about the faithfulness we have while Christ has yet to return. So, of course, this is a parable that Jesus taught, but what he's talking about, what he's referring to, is God gives us things on this earth now, and it could be money, it could be other things like abilities and talents. If God gives you a 10-talent ability, so you're a vocalist and you can sing, Mariah Carey out of the water, yet you're sitting at home scared because you're like, people won't like me. That's wasting what God has given you. I mean, you could belt out a good gospel tune in church, and use your skills for His kingdom, but are we wasting it? Are we wasting what God has given us? And that's the question that we want to wrap up with and think about. If God has given you much, use much to further the kingdom. If you're squandering what you have, why do you expect to be entrusted with more? And a lot of it comes back to money. People were like, well, God's given me this much money. What should I do with it? And a lot of times, it can come down to just, helping out with the church. Tithing at church. And I'm not just saying that because of pastor. I believe that giving part of your income to, a church tells God, I trust in you. I trust in you with what you've given me, and I'm going to give back to you and what you're doing. And so it could be anything. The faithful stewards are increased while the unfaithful is not. So when we're faithful, God gives us more. But when we're not faithful, God doesn't always take things away from us, but we can't expect to get more. We cannot see increase or a better reaping if we don't take the time today to sow responsibly. So we talked about that 2 weeks ago. When you sow a corn seed, an apple tree, whatever, you get an apple tree or a corn stalk. You don't sow an apple tree or apple seed and get a corn stalk. It doesn't work that way. So we can see if we sow responsibly now, so we're like, I'm going to use my talents and my gifts and what I have, the resources that I have to be responsible, then I'm going to, God will, bless us and increase us in that way. So when you start to take responsibility, it starts to become more natural. So under point B, it says taking responsibility becomes natural. Thoughts become actions. If you've ever heard the phrase, you are the benefits of what you eat. If I eat, and I can tell you right now, I told you guys week 1 that I want to take responsibility with what I ate. I mean, I'm the product of my eating habits. A lot of times I'm really tired. I'll get up and I'll sleep, 8 to 12 hours, and I'll be exhausted because, McDonald's is my best friend. So there's lots of coffee in my life. And I know, God has been speaking to me. You need to eat better because you want to be around to see your grandkids. You want to be around to see your family flourish. And if you keep eating McDonald's supersize me guy, then you're gonna die way sooner than you need to. And so that's me, and I can admit readily that I'm a bit of a tub because I love my McDonald's. And I'm not partial to any fast food. I'm like Sonic, Burger King. I don't even care. It tastes good. If it tastes good and it's quick, then bless you. If it tastes good and it's quick, then I'm going to eat it. But we need to have responsibility with God, with what God has given us. And sometimes, and I'm telling you guys, you may think it's weird, and you may see some gurus on YouTube that say if you look in the mirror and you tell yourself that you are beautiful, or you tell yourself that you're awesome, that it'll help you to start feeling awesome and beautiful. And it's actually true. If you look in the mirror and you say, I'm going to be responsible for what you've given me, God. I'm going to be responsible. I am a child of God. I am a beautiful, wonderfully, fearfully, and wonderfully made child of God. It actually starts to help to manifest in your thoughts and actions in the way that you do things. But if you
fulfilling prophecy, right?
Yeah, yes. I mean, you're basically proclaiming what God has already told you. You're saying, I know God has said I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Like the crazy hairs in my head are numbered, so why would you count the hairs in my head? Oh, that's right, because you care about everything else. That's important to understand. So think these thoughts. Think, I'm going to be more responsible. Tell yourself I'm going to be more responsible. And ask God to show you what He has given you, because sometimes we don't know what's right in front of us. Don't get stuck. Don't get stuck. Irresponsibility becomes this comfortable habit that we fall into. It is so easy for me to come here and be late for this class and say it's the red light's fault, or my wife is in a bad mood today, or that's a good excuse. I mean, I found that work. It's the baby's fault. Like last week, my son chipped his tooth and I still almost felt bad. I'm like, is this an excuse? And I'm like, no. My family comes first. And that it was. For that, it was more along the lines of my priorities as opposed to an excuse. But that can become an excuse. Oh, Clara was cranky this morning, so, hey, Aaron, I'm not coming in till 2. But I committed to being here every week for 4 weeks. So irresponsibility is more comfortable because it's easy for me to go, hey, Aaron, I'm not coming in today because I want to sit on my couch or because my daughter's in a bad mood. It's easy for me to do that, and it becomes a habit. So I'm like, okay, if it's that easy to not come in here today, then maybe I could do that on Sundays too. Maybe I can FaceTime the church and I can, preach from my couch. I don't even have to leave my house. And it just becomes easier to be irresponsible. It becomes easier to blame others. If I say, Stacy's sitting in there, it's Stacy's fault. But don't tell her I said that. Don't tell her I said that. It's Stacy's fault. I blame her for something. It just becomes easier, and it slopes into not doing anything. If you ever pushed a giant snowball down a hill by accident, it just starts to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. We used to have this big hill where we used to live. It was really super steep, and we would get a ball about that big up, and we would roll it around up the top, and then we would push it down the hill. And because it was so steep, it would just start to roll. And contrary to popular belief, it doesn't turn into a ball. It's more like a big cylinder of crushing, hundreds of pounds of snow, and it would run over and crush anybody in its path. But that's like irresponsibility. It's a snowball that will crush anybody in your path, and you don't even realize it. So how do I do it? How do I become more responsible? So we talked about irresponsibility in the first week. We talked about responsibility in the second week. You guys watched a video in the third week, and then so today we're here talking about how to be responsible. How do I do it? Well, form an action plan. Write stuff down. Start with the little things.
A to-do list.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a responsibility to-do list. So you look at your life and you go, how, God, am I jacking things up in my life? And show me how I could be better at being responsible. And that's a question I ask myself. I'm not here close to perfect. I would love to sit here and say I have everything together. I would love to say that my life is perfect. But I need to take responsibility in some things, eating habits, drinking more water. I've actually been doing really well with drinking more water. We've been drinking a lot of tea at my house lately instead of coffee, which reduces caffeine, and has a lot of other health benefits like, reducing exhaustion, things like that.
I heard, because you're 50% English.
Oh, yeah, that's what my mom's going around saying. Now, she actually, when Alicia was sick, she dropped over loose leaf tea. It was like ginger tea for her stomach, and I was like, this is so cool. Like, I'm making tea, and it's not in a tea bag, so we just started making tea like every day, about 500 times a day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot.
But for me, that's a health benefit. And yeah, it did help that I found out that I was 50% English. Like, I'm gonna
But
go
how much sugar did you put in the tea?
less than I would in my coffee.
Really?
Oh yeah, I only put like a teaspoon of sugar in the tea because it's not so strong.
Okay.
Whereas in my coffee, because it tastes disgusting, I have to put not only like 3 teaspoons of sugar in my cup, but then I also put creamer.
You're as bad as I am.
Yeah. So tea, it's like 1 teaspoon of sugar for a whole cup of tea, and then I put some milk, regular milk, not even. And for me, it's just, it's healthier, at least in a healthier step.
But it doesn't give you that reaction you want
Yeah.
to stay up.
Well, it sort of does. Depends on the tea that you drink. Like green tea is really good, ginseng is really good,
Really?
black tea is really good. And it doesn't have the crash is what I don't get out of
Okay.
that. So it's with coffee, it's like 200 milligrams of caffeine, and then an hour later you're like, I want to just go to bed for the rest of my life. But you start with the small things. Like for me, I cut out coffee and started drinking tea, drinking more water. Then maybe because I feel so good now, because I feel good physically and with my health, then maybe I'll make another decision to cut out maybe 1 trip to the fast food this week. And it's just one step at a time. So if you've ever done anything and you were successful at it, usually you don't do it you don't jump into it. Usually things that we jump into, we get overwhelmed.
Take little baby steps.
Yeah,
Backwards.
because I think it was, what was it? I forget what the statistic is. I think it's like 85% of New Year's resolutions fail within the first couple of months. because people are like, man, it's 2018, I'm gonna lose 40 pounds by March. I'm gonna cut out all food consumption. I'm just gonna starve myself and drink water for the rest of my life. That's my New Year's resolution because I think that's the healthier choice. And then, 3 weeks in, you're like, oh, this is horrible. I hate myself. Because you don't take baby steps. Whereas I think the good New Year's resolution is I'm gonna drink more water. I'm gonna I'm gonna eat a little healthier. I'm gonna have one salad a week. And then, you start to feel better because you made that one choice and you're like, man, I wanna keep making them. I want to keep doing it. I want to keep doing things. I
Start with small things.
Yep.
That's what it starts with.
Yep, and
Small changes.
I put some examples in there. 4 examples. For instance, do what you say you'll do. If you say you're going to be somewhere or do something, then do it. If you promise to pay somebody something, I think this is big because it's easy for us to borrow money. It's hard for us to pay it back because we get that help, and then we're like, well, I'm cool now. And then, you may promise, and that person may not even want money back. But if you promise to pay something, then pay it. Yeah, kind of like we used to go to this farm up in Pennsylvania with my grandmother, and it's Linvilla Orchards. This big farm where they'd have all these different, this huge playground where they had wood fire trucks, and you could climb one of them. And when we were kids, it was fun. So it was this box that my grandmother would throw money in when we got there, and I never understood what it was, and they operated on the honor system. So it was $1 or $2 per person to get in, and they wouldn't have somebody stationed there. They would have a box that you would drop money in as you drove by. And you could absolutely get away with driving in and not putting money in there, but on the honor system, you would do it, and she would always put that in, and I look back on that, and I remember that.
Okay.
God has given you kids, so maybe spending more time with your kids. Take care of what God has given you. Maybe it's discipline. Maybe we need to discipline more. Maybe we need to find a way to, honor or be responsible for what God has given us in that area. Or just do what you got to do. There are things that need to get done around the house. For me, with all of my family there, it's like trying to mop up 3 inches of water in your house with a dry sponge. It just doesn't work.
Okay.
Because I'll clear the counter and clean everything up, and then her family will sweep through, and it'll be all messed up again. But it's just doing those small things. So you got to do what you got to do. My wife didn't do laundry, I probably would be sitting here in a rope, and they'd probably kick me out for that. They wouldn't let me come back. But there's things that we have to do and things that we have to get done, and sometimes just taking responsibility, just doing those things. I mean, I think that's the easiest way to start being responsible, is find something that you have to do that you've been putting off and just do it. Oh my gosh, that feels so good. Like my wife, when she does laundry, she's like, oh, I've accomplished something for today. And normally we'd just be like, yeah, you did laundry, you did something you're supposed to do. Well, that's exactly it. When we feel like we're not living up to our responsibilities, and we just feel bad. I do anyway. I know that I do. Small things then snowball into big things. So whereas that snowball effect destroys everything in irresponsibility, there's also a snowball effect in being responsible. So as you do things responsibly, then you start to see that it's easier to do things responsibly, and you feel better about yourself emotionally, and then you do it. These small chores, responsibilities, they turn into big events and everyday things. Oh, I forgot to tell my wife I didn't die. She's like, text me to make sure that you got there okay. So I text her and tell her I didn't die.
Unless you go.
She's worried about her sister.
Yeah,
Probably not.
probably not. So Abraham Lincoln said that you cannot escape the responsibility by evading it today. And that's pretty powerful. You can't escape responsibility by evading it today. Best way that I can explain it is this. So you live in a house, and if you were to take your trash and instead of taking it to the curb where it belongs, you put it in a back room that you don't use, eventually what's going to happen? It's going to get full of what else?
Stink.
It's going to stink to high heaven. And it's not just going to be in that one room. It's going to stink up your whole house. My dog did some business in the kitchen the other day, and oh my gosh, the whole house stunk. And I was like, I had to leave, so I left. I had to go to a training, and I came back, and it still stunk like, dog poop. And I was so mad and so frustrated, but I thought about this, and I'm like, wow, that's such a interesting point, because this little tiny bit of business in the bathroom has affected my entire house, or not in the bathroom, in the kitchen. It's affected my entire house, and it is. So when we're not responsible, it starts to stink up our whole house, our whole mental house. And you can't escape responsibility. You throw even one bag of garbage in the back room, eventually that's going to rot, and it's going to smell your whole house up anyway, regardless of whether you fill it or whether you put one in there. So take those things that you need to be more responsible in, and don't put them off, and start to act responsibly today. So ultimate responsibility starts with you. You hold yourself to a higher standard, and do that. Look at yourself and say, I expect more from you. I expect, and God expects more from me. And I say that to myself all the time. Man, you need to shape up. God expects more from you. Expect better from yourself, and treat responsibilities like they are dire. So look at something that has to get done and be like, I have to get this done to be responsible. It's not always easy. I'm not sitting here telling you that being responsible is the easiest thing in the world, because sometimes it is the hardest thing in the world, because it is so easy to be irresponsible. But irresponsibility will destroy you emotionally, and it'll affect your relationships too. It'll take some determination to get out of irresponsibility, but you sometimes need to push yourself, and then you will see results. So you're no longer escaping your own life. I've met with people who were acting irresponsibly, and they weren't paying bills, and they weren't taking care of their kids, or they weren't doing paying back their debts, or whatever else it is, and they hated their own life. And they didn't understand why. And if you look at it, it's because they were making decisions that they didn't like. They didn't think that they should have made, but it was easier for them to be irresponsible than it was to be irresponsible. And so when you take responsibility, you're no longer trying to escape from your own life. Instead, you take control, and new options open up to you. You start taking action, not just when you feel like it, but just because you know that it's the right thing to do, and you feel better because of it. And then the consistency that you have breeds responsibility over time. So simple. Take responsibility today. It's a simple choice. Don't aim for perfection, aim for improvement. So a lot of times we beat ourselves up because we set these goals where we want to be perfect, and then when we don't aim or meet that expectation, we beat ourselves up. Don't aim for perfection, aim for improvement. So you fall down, what do? You get back up, you look at you assess the situation, you go, okay, this is what happened, this is what happened at this point, I'm just not going to do that next time. Don't aim for, I read that already. Don't aim for perfection, aim for improvement. I guess it's fine if we say that. We reiterate that twice. Okay. Learn from your mistakes, but don't beat yourself up. So if you're falling somewhere, you're failing in a situation, don't beat yourself up. It's not good. Listen for the blame. Ask yourself, am I taking responsibility here, or am I blaming somebody else that did not, have a play in this, or didn't have a role in this? And even if they did, so even if you did say, I was coming here today, and my wife was in a bad mood, and so I blame her, and I'm like, she woke up grumpy, and she was yelling at me, so I didn't want to get here because I wanted to deal with her. Or I could say, I could have just been responsible and been here on time and dealt with that issue later. So look for the blame. Listen for that area in your life where you might be blaming other people, and try to fix that. Don't blame others, because it's hurtful. Simply take responsibility. So in your notes it should say something about answer for the pie. Yeah. Focus on your piece of the pie. So in one of the Andy Stanley videos, I don't know if you guys saw it, did he have a big piece, like a pie chart drawn on the screen or on his whiteboard thingy?
I don't think so.
No? Okay, so there's like 4 or 5 videos. In one of the videos, he brings out a chart and there's a big circle in it, and it's a pie, and there's a triangle drawn like one of the pieces. And what he explained it as was, actually I'll draw it for you.
I think he actually did
I
that.
have
Yeah, I think he did that.
So we have a pie, and I'm not an artist, so.
But your milk,
Whatever, that's
it's
pie.
I do
sample.
remember a kind of graph thing.
Yeah, so what happens is, this is all the things that I do in life, and that is a horrible drawing. Oh my gosh, I'm redrawing that.
You're
So,
left-handed?
oh yeah, I'm left-handed.
So is my son.
Left-handed, and I write like a doctor. This is a pie, a better drawn pie. Okay, so this is my piece of the pie. This is all the things that I'm responsible for in life. This may be all the other things that, other people around me are responsible for. Look, this is probably my wife's, this is me. This is what my wife expects of me, and this is all the stuff she does around the house. So I try to kind of expand my pie. Because she, does the kids and the house and everything else in between, and school and work and blah, blah, blah. This is my piece of the pie, but we tend, when we're irresponsible, tend to focus on all this. So we're like, this is what Alicia should be doing. This is what Michael should be doing. This is what Clara should be doing. They need to be doing this. They need to be doing this. They need to be doing this. Whereas I miss out on what I'm doing, what I'm supposed to be doing. So this is my part of the pie. This is, providing for my family financially. This is providing for my family spiritually. This is raising my kids up in, in the Word. This is, being the pastor that God has called me to be. This is, doing what I'm supposed to do. And instead of, if I'm focused on everybody else around me and what they're supposed to be doing and what they're not doing and blaming other people, then I'm not even fulfilling my little tiny piece of the pie. No matter how small it is, it's what God has given me. So if I'm looking at others, and that plays into envy as well. I said this on Facebook the other day, if the grass is green on the other side, then water your own lawn. And if the grass, you feel like your grass is brown, and you're looking over the side of the fence, and you're going, man, that grass looks really green and comfortable. You hop over, and you realize, first of all, it's not your grass. Second of all, if you watered your own grass, then you'd have green grass too.
I remember you did talk about that. It went both ways, like whether you think that, that person had all the advantages in life and that's why, or because, like, well, I'm doing better than them, so at least I'm follow.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you yesterday.
And that, yeah, and we do. We focus on other people, and we look at other people and we go, man, I wish I had what they had. Man, I wish, or, I wish they were doing what they were supposed to be doing. Regardless of how we focus on it, we shouldn't focus on other people's part of the pie. We focus on our own part of the pie, because we all collectively make the whole pie. So today, we all make a responsibility pie. You guys said that you would be here so that you would, graduate. I don't know, they call it the Well Academy? What do they call it? Mentee program. Call it the Well Academy.
Well, that sounds
The Academy of the Well. So when you graduate, I mean, that's you're taking responsibility by being here today. All these other people, they're slacking. They're slacking. I'm kidding. They're at a funeral, so that's a good excuse. But we're all making a pie. So I told I'm acting on my responsibility to be here, so I'm focusing on my section of the pie. But I'm not looking at those people who aren't here and going, man, they should have been here today. They are focused on their part of the pie. They should be looking at their part of the pie and not me looking at, well, to an extent. But the point is, focus on what you are responsible for, focus on your part of the pie, and go from there. So these are things, I don't know why this is exercise 1. I guess I put it, exercise 1 for this class. I didn't put anything else, did I? No, I didn't. Okay. I originally had 2 exercises, and I chose to do just the 1. So this exercise is something that you could do today if you want to, or you could do it on your own time, but it will really help you. It helped me because I did it myself when I first taught this class a couple of years ago. Write your 5 biggest problems in your life. Things that you feel are keeping you from a better life. Oh, that's yours, sorry. Things that you feel that are keeping you from a better life. What is the cause of each What is the cause of each problem that you're facing? So those 5 things, whether it's my electric got shut off, or my kid backtalks me, or I feel sluggish and tired because I eat way too much McDonald's. Whatever it is, what is the cause of each of those problems in your life? Look at it objectively. So don't look at it in light of hopefully or being irresponsible. Look at it in light of how I can be how I can resolve. How do I play a part in these issues? So don't say, all right, my electric is off, so it's BGE's fault, or I feel sluggish and tired, so it's McDonald's fault for putting up their sign, 400 feet in the sky so I can see it from my house. It's their fault. They put their sign up way too high. They advertise way too well. So what are the 5 biggest problems in my life that I'm struggling with right now? Maybe they're emotional. I get mad too easily. I'm impatient. I punch somebody in the face. I always visualize punching people in the face. What is it that, and it could be anything, literally anything. So what I would say is pray, ask God to show you what are these 5 areas, or maybe you know them right off the bat. You're like, man, I can name 10. Focus on the 5 big ones first. Do you have emotional issues that you struggle with? Do you have physical things that are going on, or maybe there's a debt that you owe that you have been struggling to pay back. Maybe you could pay $20 on it, or whatever else. Then identify the cause. What's the cause of that problem? I owe this much money. What's the cause? Well, I borrowed money. I have anger issues. I look at someone and I want to punch them in the face immediately. I met people like that. They want to punch everybody. What is that? What's the cause of that? Well, objectively, where am I being irresponsible that's causing me to be angry with myself and others? And then the last point there is, where do you expect the resolution to come from? Better way to ask that is, how can I resolve this? How can I resolve this? What steps can I take? So, again, one of my problems could be, I owe this much money. Cause is, maybe I took too many sick days off and I wasn't really sick, and now I don't have as much money. How can I expect to resolve this? Well, I can work a little overtime and pay that debt off. So that's kind of an example as to what I'm talking about, but it could be anything. It could literally be anything. And it's not a requirement, they're not gonna make you do this, but I would say if you really wanna start being responsible and being happier and more joyful, find those 5 problems, find out what the cause is, and then work toward fixing that. And I really didn't give a whole lot of space to find out, explain how to fix that, but I think the whole backside of this thing is boring. Yeah. Any questions?
Nope. You wanna use my pen? I did 4.
Yes. And it could be anything. Do you guys have any questions at all? I know you'll get a new teach next week, but
I'm your teacher.
I quit. I'll come back here. No, I feel
Students.
can't take you people anymore. I give up. I'm going home and I'm never coming back. No, I only teach 4 classes. I told them I teach. I might start teaching a computer class. But they're trying to get funding because I can't come here and teach a computer class every week and not get paid for it.
Yeah.
So they want to pay me for it.
Would it be beginner, intermediate, or?
It would range. I would set up all 3. So I would do beginner, intermediate, and advanced, and then based on the amount of people that are coming and their skill level, then I just adjust it.
Wow.
Because
That's something I could be brushed up on.
yeah, because I heard that you are good with computers.
I used to work at the Chrysalis House. I used to be administrative assistant.
Oh my
I used
gosh.
to do payroll and everything.
And that's why my mom was like, you need to ask Patty to do some things on the computer. And I'm like, well, when Amber goes away and she leaves us for college, I'm going to have her do some stuff. Because Amber's abandoning me and she does everything.
Really?
Yeah, she's going to college. She's going to be gone for, 4 years. But she'll come back every once in a while. It doesn't help me on Sundays.
Yeah, I just am not, I've been out of the swing of things.
Yeah.
I need a refresher. I used to keep databases and everything.
Oh, wow. Yeah, so we would do stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I like, because it's just practical skills. So
Yeah.
say, somebody here has no idea what a computer is and they're like, what's a power button? We'd have a class, and I taught it one time. They had me teach a 4-week class back in,
Kind of like for dummies,
yeah.
the book.
Yeah, but you wouldn't necessarily be, refresher for dummies. It would be more like hey, I need to remember some things and brush
Yeah.
up on some things.
I need to brush up because it's been a couple of years. I just haven't been, it would come
Yeah.
back.
Huh?
Like I used to make brochures.
Well, I told Mandy we need to have a computer lab.
That would be
Set
cool.
up computers so you can come and just mess around, because that's how I learned. I never took a computer class in my life, but you know, I'm trying to start a business where I fix
Yeah.
computers. I still haven't taken a computer class.
Really, see, Excel, I'd have to really.
Yeah, the formulas, they drive me crazy.
I know a little bit. I mean, I'd have to really get into the swing of things.
And you could do that. I think you could. And so, that's just something that we're working on.
That would be great. Well, if they could get funding, that would be something
Yeah.
remarkable.
Because that would be cool, because we could set up, I don't know if there's any of the tenants are leaving upstairs, but if one of the rooms open, heck, we could put
Well,
Couple
where
rooms
the
of
Sunday school.
Well, they got
Outside
the
of
place
it.
where the, driving school was.
I thought
That
they were
was
driving
in
school in
here.
here.
Hmm?
Yeah,
That
they'd be
was
driving
in
school in
here.
here.
Yeah, they used to.
But I know that a couple of the rooms might be opening upstairs, but still, it's like for people don't know how to use computers.
My mom's scared. She don't even know how to text.
That's how my grandmother is. She's like, we got her a jitterbug phone. It has like the numbers that are bigger than her head.
You see it on
Yeah,
TV.
she threw it out. She's like, she threw it out.
She did?
Really?
Well, I heard they put cameras up.
They got like, you know, like little square charging blocks for phones. It looks like that, and you plug it into the wall, and it has a camera on it. And so, because my grandmother lives with my mom, and she is the worst human being for electronics. Like, she should go into an age where they had porta potties and just nothing.
She breaks stuff.
Everything.
Your
My
mom
mom
had-
just had to replace a garbage disposal for like the third time, and she's only been there for a little over a year. She like slams things, breaks things, eat people's food. Oh my gosh, she's crazy. And then she blames. So she's like, she should be here for this class, because she like blames my brother.
Does she for everything?
Everything. Brandon did it. She went in and broke. I was literally sitting in the living room, and she walked in and broke something in her china cabinet, and she goes, "Dang it, Brandon!" I'm like,
Maybe she
"You
really
just
thinks
broke it."
that.
She may. Yeah.
Might just be.
She is sharp as a tack.
Is she?
I used to think that she was crazy, but she is sharp as a tack. She's a
Okay.
reader. She's an avid
I've met
reader.
her before.
Yeah, she is not dumb. She knows exactly what she's doing too. Like, I used to think, man, maybe she's just nuts, but
All
like,
the time, Moses.
yeah. That's what I thought. But she remembers everything.
She does.
Oh yeah, like so I've always asked her, you know, where is such and such item? Like when I was growing up, she used to live with us before. And I would say, Grandma, have you seen my, you know, phone charger or whatever? It looks like this. And she'd go, no, I have no idea. And she would have put it away. She thought someone would get mad at her. So she would go and find it like in an obscure place where she would hit it when I walk out of the room. So I'll be like, okay, whatever, Graham, go to my bedroom. And then I'll come back out and it'll be on the counter. And she'll be like, oh, I found it. It was right over there. And I'm like, no, it wasn't. I looked there before. And so she's as sharp as a tack, but she's just,
She's got her awkward way.
yeah, she does.
Whoops, sorry.
Hello. We're just knitting. They're gonna have all kinds of different conversation on the video because we didn't stop that. But if you guys don't have any questions, then we'll just pray out. And if you guys need anything, you know how to get hold of me.
Yes. We want that church to get started.
Oh yeah, the building. It's coming along. Let's pray. Father God, we come before you and thank you for the last couple of weeks that we got to spend together. We pray that you would help us to learn and continue to learn and grow in your grace and knowledge. Lord, although we might not be sitting around this table in the next 11 months until next year happens and I get to teach this again, you still want us to be responsible for what you've given us, and I pray that you would open up our hearts to do that and look at ourselves objectively, that we would look into our lives and really just find where you would want us and allow us to be responsible. That we would find the problem areas that exist in our lives and objectively look at those problem areas and figure out how we can play a role in resolving those. God, you are a God of decency and order. You are a God of peace and love, and I pray that you would help us in peace and in joy to focus on these areas of your responsibility that we might have creeping up in our lives and to resolve those. Or that we would live happier, healthier, more joyful lives because we know that we are fulfilling and being responsible for the things that you've given us, Lord. Being good stewards, sowing in responsibility and doing what you've asked us to do and taking care of the things that you've given us, Lord. Like a good renter, Lord, we are renting this body and we are renting our space here on this earth. And may we be responsible in those things that you've given us to take care of. And we pray these things in your wonderful and holy name, Lord. Amen.
Amen, brother.
Amen. What a man. Cool. Well, it has been a wonderful month,
Yes, it has.
but I see you guys on Sunday too, so it's not like I never see you, except for you. I don't get to see you on Sunday.
Oh, shit.
You should think about it. You should think about it. Do you go to church? You have a home church? No? You do now.
Restoration.
We'd love to have you out. I think you'd like it here.
It's not that,
It's
it's my
come as you
medications
are.
are messing with me.
You guys might,
Tired in the morning?
It's
a
just
good
everything,
idea was
every-
be starting.
Putting medications to do with
Let
my
me see
body.
if they got
Ah.
something out of here.
Good idea would be starting a or something.
Oh, like a bus ministry type thing?
Cause I don't have a car and like if it's